You're listening to Shine On Policycast, SolarPower Europe's podcast that brings you EU solar policy updates in 10 minutes or less. I'm your host, Bethany Meban, and this week I'm joined by Naomi Chevillard, our Head of Regulatory Affairs, and you can find her on Twitter at Naomi_CVD. Hi Naomi, welcome to Policycast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So this week we'll talk about electricity market design and the proposal that came forward in the middle of March. It's a hot topic. Everybody had lots of feelings about it in the run-up to the proposal. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the proposal in March looks like.
Yes, so the proposal aims at different things, right? First, protecting consumers against more price spikes, in particular by reinforcing the preparedness of their suppliers. It also will improve investments into new renewable capacities to replace the gas that we don't have
and want to move away from.
want to move away from. And also it has good proposals to incentivize the deployment of flexibilities. Concretely for solar, it means different things. So one thing is that all new investments that are under direct price support scheme, so a support scheme from the government, will be under a contract for difference with a quite a flexible design, so leaving some flexibility to the member states. It also reinforces the framework for power purchase agreements by improving the retailers' framework to facilitate it for retailers to enter into PPAs. And at the same time, it creates incentives such as bank guarantees for off-takers willing to enter into PPAs. Another interesting thing is that it creates a framework for energy sharing, something that we've called for in particular. So a sort of legal framework, who does what in order to do energy sharing. In the Baltic countries where you share in the same bidding zone, so there are different models existing. We think it's interesting because it's going to really unleash the value of local production of solar energy, right? It's interesting to self-consume for a business during the weekdays, but maybe in the weekends, if the business is closed, you might as well share the electricity with the residential area close by. We already had a framework for self-consumption, but limited to individual houses. We had this concept of energy communities, but with like a heavy governance rules and in practice no real legal framework to concretely do energy sharing. So what the text does is that it creates the legal framework. It says that you have the right to do energy sharing. It also requires your retailers to facilitate doing energy sharing, and it requires a DSO to provide the data that you need to do the energy sharing.
So that means that you can sell your excess solar, make money from it, but then whoever's buying it is buying energy at cheaper than the market rate, and everybody kind of wins.
Yeah, exactly. And what we would like to see to really make the business case of these kind of models is to have the grid operators propose a specific grid tariff, so that in your electricity bill you already pay a lower electricity cost because it's solar electricity, but you also pay a lower grid tariff because in a way you're helping the grid because you're optimizing the electricity consumption very locally.
So energy sharing is good for the grid. It's in market design, which is great. And you mentioned kind of provisions for flexibility as well. I mean, do you want to go into a bit about that and how that helps the grid?
Yes. So indeed, there are two elements. The first one relates to grid connection, right? With the acceleration of the market, we have more and more issues with accessing the grid, and there are simple solutions that you can already set up. Those who are in the market design is first the mandatory publication of available grid capacity for developers to already anticipate where there is congestions, where on the contrary they can connect a project. The second thing is to allow DSOs to do anticipatory investment. At the moment, DSOs have to wait until they see the grid connection requests pile up on their desks before reinvesting into into cables. So now they can anticipate that a bit more. And the last thing is that DSOs can finance operational investment. So that means instead of investing only on capital investment like a grid, a new cable, they can also finance investments like smart grid solutions with all the data treatment infrastructure that you have behind, or frameworks to activate flexibility, like a local flexibility market or a lower grid tariff, a time of use tariff.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of good stuff there. I mean, we've talked a little bit about the sort of pros in the existing text, but as the text kind of develops, I mean, what are the areas where we'd like to see a bit more built out or changed or adapted?
Overall, yeah, we're very, very positive with the text. I mean, just to say a bit more about what's positive, because the text is what it is, but there's also what is not in the text, and that shouldn't get
mandatory CFDs.
Exactly. I mean, no, the first thing is the market revenue caps, right? Because these caps were introduced with the emergency regulation in December, and it was a nightmare to implement them. In some countries, they don't even have the implementing acts because they don't know how to implement it. And where they implemented it, it disregarded the PPA model. So those consumers who had investing into renewable PPA solutions were penalized. So it's good that these caps are not prolonged. The second thing is that it preserves the spot market, which is a market where you clearly see when you have too much or too little electricity, which is a great signal for innovations like storage, like demand-side response. So this is preserved, and that's very good. Among the things that should be improved, for example, having a similar protection of PPAs against retroactive changes as there already exists for CFDs would be a good improvement. Then there is something that we'd like to see in the text, which is the creation of a right for non-firm grid connection agreements. So
tell me what that is.
Yes. So it's the idea that if you are a consumer and you have the means to do flexibility with your project, oh my God, it's difficult to explain. The idea of the non-firm grid connection agreement is it's a grid connection agreement where you have a bit of curtailment. So either all the time or at certain times of the day. The goal is to say, if you want to connect a solar panel, but at noon in summer you will inject a lot of electricity and the grid can't cope that, what the DSO will propose is a grid reinforcement with a price, right? If you have a battery with this solar panel, or if you have an energy management system in your house that allows you to stop the production of the solar panel at certain times of the day or store the electricity, then you should be proposed a grid connection agreements that includes that option to stop the production at certain times of the day. So it's really the idea to use the low-hanging fruits we have to connect more solar capacities.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you make the life of the grid easier, you're kind of rewarded for it. Exactly. Yeah. Right. And then are there other aspects of the EMD that you'd like to see fleshed out a bit as the process continues? Maybe one key last aspect that we would like to see improve is indeed improving the framework for co-located solar and storage. So today, if you have a solar and storage plant, you're not allowed to charge from the grid with a battery. Why? Because the regulator considers that if you charge from the grid, you cannot trace the green electricity that is stored in the battery. Right. And you should not have access to the support scheme, so the contracts for difference.
But from a grid point of view, a battery is really useful when it can perform all the services that we ask it to perform, right? So it's really an issue for the development of solar and storage. There are solutions that exist, like metering concepts that would allow to trace this green electricity in the battery. But we need to have them recognized by regulators in order to allow solar and storage to charge from the grid.
Right, and presumably drive the development of more of these kind of smart energy systems that allow this traceability and flexibility that we're going to need to to build out the grid to the scale that it needs to be. So we talked a little bit about the content there. I mean, what process are we at now? So we had the proposal in mid-March. I think maybe the rapporteur was just named in the Parliament. I mean, what are the sort of next steps?
So the Parliament will take a position relatively quickly. We understand that by September they should have a position. The Council is getting ready to get a position even faster with a general approach by June, which means that they would go into trialogue in the second part of this year and conclude by the end of the year to have the legislation entering into force somewhere early 2024. So this is very positive from our side because it would mean that we would have a new framework to replace the emergency measures and the market revenue caps. So we hope they can concentrate on keeping this timeline, and we'll probably have a deeper reform with the next commission.
Wow. So then maybe we can come back and catch up on this once we have the EP position and the council position and the direction that trilogues are going to go.
Yes.
But thanks so much for your insights, Naomi, and hope to see you again soon on Policycast.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Shine On Policycast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share on social media, tagging @SolarPower EU.